Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Life podcast and YouTube channel. Art Burns here, you there. I'm really excited. And actually, it's funny. I always say that I'm excited, and I am. I think I've mentioned this before, is that I generate excitement, right, as I'm getting ready to do this podcast. And I do. I always feel very, very excited as soon as I hit that record button. But it's an interesting reality this morning, however, that I really was at a loss about what I was going to record here. Now, first of all, let me just say this is a rare or currently rare circumstance where I'm recording 2 days in a row. Actually, maybe 3 days in a row. Two out of the last three, let's say that, or three out of the last four, pardon me. And so it's funny doing this channel and this podcast, right? There's times throughout the day where it's like a thought will come to me and I'll say, "Oh my gosh, that's a great episode. That's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Yes, I can't wait," right? And sometimes that happens, when I'm driving my car or I'm in a grocery store or something. I don't have anything to write it down with, right? I try to always carry a notebook with me for exactly this purpose. But sometimes, you're just not. So you just, you trust that, it'll come back, or maybe not, whatever. And so such a thing happened, yesterday afternoon, like after I did the episode yesterday of reading the Thich Nhat Hanh piece for you. I had some idea and I was like, oh yeah, almost like I should have talked about that today. And I'm definitely doing that next. I wake up this morning and I had everything set. Like I have a call that I have to make at 9:30. So I, make sure that I got everything set up. It's about 8:45. I got plenty of time to record. And, I have everything set up and it's blank. I'm like, I don't remember what it was, right? Now, there's much more to this, right? Because it's not just that I didn't remember what it was that I wanted to talk about, but I felt this, like a tension in my body. I felt some sort of discomfort happening, right? Something that was like, not only am I not sure what I want to talk about today, but I'm not sure of anything today. Like, I'm like feeling like, oh my gosh, like this is a bad day, right? Quote unquote. In the for all of you on the podcast, I'm doing the air quotes around bad day, right? Because there's no such thing as a bad day, right? It's just a day, right? And it's how I am experiencing this day, right? And that's where the magic happens, right? Is when we can recognize that the day is just a day, and whatever it is that's presenting itself today that's my opportunity to sense into what I'm experiencing, my opportunity to feel myself in this experience, right? So something really amazing happened, right? I was feeling this conflict, and I did some journaling, and I was getting myself to feeling better, and I was really, coming into myself, and that's what the answer is always this, right? This is always the answer. That when we're feeling disrupted, when we're feeling tense, when we're feeling off or down or just beside ourselves with with that feeling of like inertia and jittery nervousness, whatever it is, any and all of it, the answer is always to attend to it. Right? It's not about fixing it. It's not about solving it. It's not about, making it better, like mom used to do when she kissed your knee after you fell off your bike, right? Remember my son falling one time, running into the house saying, "Kiss it, kiss it." Like that was somehow this magical thing, right? But there is no such magic, right? I mean, mom kissing your skin knee, it felt better emotionally because now you felt safe, right? But it was not about fixing the wound, right? It was about feeling safe within the process, within the experience of the wound, right? And so I was, doing this morning, because again, this is always the answer, is to not try to like, okay, what can I do to make myself feel better? But instead, what is it that I'm feeling? Let me feel it as fully as I possibly can. Let me take refuge, if you will. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Let me take refuge in the awareness that I have of my own experience, right? And then I take refuge in the practices, right? I take refuge in the practice of the awareness and then the self-compassion that I can offer myself. Right? I don't have to beat myself up over not knowing what to record today. In fact, I could give myself permission to not record anything today, right? Now, that's not always the case. Maybe I like this phone call I have to make at 9:30. I cannot not make that phone call. So I have to somehow have the phone call within this experience. And that's okay. I don't have to feel a certain way in order to have that phone call. I don't have to feel a certain way in order for life to work for me, right? Life is life. The universe is happening right now, all around me, and I'm just part of it. And so instead of trying to fight what is happening, we can take refuge. Again, that's that word, and it's a really important word. We can take refuge in the awareness of what's happening. And in that awareness, then, to practice kindness and compassion, and acceptance, right? So let me tell you what's with that word refuge, and this is so cool, right? So at some point I was feeling kind of better, I was like, okay, working it out, right? I'm not getting further into the depression. I did my journaling. I did my, I had something to eat. I had a little tea. So I had a little bit of caffeine, very, very little bit of caffeine, to sort of, just feel getting awake, I was easing into everything that I was feeling. Again, the caffeine was not an intervention to make me feel better. The caffeine felt like, this is what I need right now. I need the warmth of the tea. I need the soothing warmth of that tea. And not that I need, but that's what is available to me, right? I'm taking refuge in the awareness of that warm, soothing quality of having a cup of tea. And I know that at the end of that, I'm going to feel different. I don't know exactly how I'm going to feel, but I'm certainly going to feel different. Again, we're not doing it to attain anything. We're just being present with what is, right? Like that is the practice, right? To notice, okay, if I have 2 bananas and a cup of tea, what's gonna happen? How am I gonna feel? What's gonna be the result of this experiment, if you will, right? So at some point, I popped open my computer because I had to, check on some emails and stuff like that. And, kind of like still thinking like, okay, I guess maybe I'm not going to record a podcast today because I'm just not feeling it today. And that's what today is bringing. Maybe I'll do one later, maybe not. We'll see. And so I flip open the computer, I check my emails, and then I checked like text messages and, kind of sorted all that stuff out. And then, yes, I opened up social media just to see what's going on out there in Facebook world. Who's out there, let me see if I can get some of that dopamine, cranking in my brain, right? And again, not as an intervention. It was just like, and honestly, it's kind of habitual, right? It's like, okay, well, let's see what everybody else out there is doing today, And so I scroll and I scroll and I scroll, and really it's like, now I can feel myself actually becoming more tense, right? Because I see somebody posted a video, using a line that I've used here with you, which is the if it's hysterical, it's historical, and there's some therapist out there using this now, and then and then I see a couple of political posts, and I'm just now I'm feeling the tension come back, I'm feeling it, or kind of going the other way on me. It's like starting to build again, right? Where I was starting to feel a little bit less and a little bit more grounded. Now I'm like, oh God, things are even worse than I thought. And this is just the story of the mind, right? This is just how it sort of unfolds, right? One more scroll, and then there's one of those posts that has like the color background, like just on a type thing. You can, on Facebook, you just pick that background thing, and it's one of like the rainbow in the background, not a rainbow, but like several different colors sort of blended together, and the type is, what does it mean to you when Tay, which is Thich Nhat Hanh. This is a Thich Nhat Hanh group that I'm in Facebook. When Tay says to take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the Sangha. And at that moment, I was like, that's my podcast. And I fired everything up and I started talking. So, I mean, it's so beautiful and fitting that it came from a Thich Nhat Hanh group, right? Where somebody was asking that question. What does it mean to you to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? Now, again, we know that this is not a Buddhist platform here, but we borrow a lot from Buddhism, right? Because Buddhism and really Hinduism was where because Buddhism is an extension of Hinduism, right? It's as Alan Watts says, Buddhism is Hinduism stripped down for export. Right, repackaged for export, and so really the Hinduism is where the practice of meditation began, right? And so it's it's such a beautiful thing that's what came up, right? So again, even though this is not a Buddhist platform, we do talk about Buddhism and even some Hinduism because that's where these practices started, right? Those are the first people in recorded history that sat down and just contemplated themselves, contemplated their experience, contemplated their body, their emotions, their thoughts, right? Just like you and I are doing here, right? Just like we do all the time here, at least in my world, we do it all the time, right? And so what does it mean to I'll tell you what it means to me, and you can tell me what it means to you if you like, but what does this mean to take refuge, right? So first of all, the Buddha, to say take refuge in the Buddha, right, is in my opinion, what that means is that, in contrast to Western religions, right, the Eastern philosophies, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, I don't know if maybe a couple of Zen Buddhism for sure. These are, in these practices, we don't believe that there is a God out there, a supreme being out there that is ruling everything. We believe that we are God. We are part of that. So the idea of taking refuge in the Buddha is a sense of, we talk about, or they in Buddhism talk about, having the heart of a Buddha, right? Which means that you live as the Buddha, right? Which means to live in the ways of the Buddha, right? Which is to say, reflective and contemplative and accepting and paying attention, right? So when we take refuge in the Buddha, and then the Dharma is, to take refuge in the Buddha, is to say, whenever things are, whenever you feel you need refuge from something, the answer is, as I just explained, attending to it, right? Like the Buddha sat down under a tree on a bed made of grass, for I don't know, days, weeks maybe, just sat there, almost died actually. A girl came by and brought him some milk and something to eat, so he would have perished it without that. And he just sat there until he understood through reflection and contemplation until he became enlightened. So he understood the source of his suffering, and he understood the value, or that the answer was acceptance, and that the answer was letting go of attachment, and the answer was to see things more clearly, which is the opposite of delusion that we talk about, right? And so when we say the Dharma is a tricky word. I think it's most related to what, the Tao. Tao, Dharma, pretty similar, right? And the Tao is the way, right? And that's, of course, from the Taoist philosophies, right? That it's just, this is the way things are, right? That's the Tao. The way of the universe, right? And what they call it is the water course way, right? Is that if you look at water, water never, tries to break through something. Water finds a way around something, right? But water also carved the Grand Canyon, so it's water is powerful, but it's also yielding. And that is the way, right? So Dharma is kind of a variation on that, if you will. And I'm not a Buddhist, so I don't understand completely clearly, so I can't tell you necessarily what what taking refuge in that. But again, I think that's what it is the understanding that the goal or the functioning of of our experience is not about taking a pill to feel better, or not about taking a drink to feel better, not about going online to feel better. It's about being with the difficulty, being with the feelings that are giving us a difficult time, right? And then taking refuge in the Sangha. Sangha is just another word for community, right? It's your tribe, if you will, right? The people who resonate your vibe, if you will. And you all are my Sangha, and I am your Sangha. And so I am here taking refuge in that, right? Because again, it's about coming in to reflect. It's about understanding that is the answer, not, as opposed to, running away from something or trying to extinguish some suffering somehow with avoidance or bypass or some kind of, chemical, infusion, if you will, right? And then we take that into, and then the refuge in the Dharma is to know that is the answer. I don't know if I said that already. I'm sorry. But then the taking refuge in the Sangha is to say, like, bringing this back to the community, right? Saying, hey, look what I just figured out. Because maybe somebody out there needs to hear that. And maybe if I put this out there, maybe something else comes back to me that becomes not a means of intervention to somehow stop the pain or end the suffering, but instead to do that, to end the suffering through the awareness of the suffering, through the awareness of the roots of the suffering, which in almost all cases is not seeing things clearly, i.e. delusion, refusing to accept what is happening, i.e. aversion, or attachment to some vision or notion or model of the way you believe things should be, which is, the opposite of that is letting go, right? And so when we bring our awareness into all this, right, again, it doesn't make things better, right? I'm still not feeling 100%. I'm still a little off, right? And doing this does not feel like it does every other time that I do it, right? Like, I'm not coming in here with something that I had all planned out and like, okay, yeah, woo, let's do this, So it's not perfect. It's not good. It's not, it's not right. It's not anything. It just is what this moment is, right? And I can even feel it. Like, the flow of this is not like I'm not coming across in the same way that I normally do. And now again, so maybe the instinct is to say, oh, well, then don't put the podcast out there. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't make it worse. Don't. Or conversely, I put it out and I start second guessing it all day. Oh my gosh, should I have said that? Let me listen to it again. Oh my gosh, what did I say? Right? That all of that is going to cause more of the tension. All of that is going to cause more of the negative emotions, and all of that is going to create more of a negative, critical, pessimistic story in my mind. So the answer is not to turn away from the suffering, not to turn away from this, not normal feeling that I'm feeling this morning. And it's not to somehow come up with the masterpiece of podcast episodes either, right? It's not to fix anything. The answer is to turn towards the discomfort, to turn towards the suffering, to turn towards the negative story in my mind. And to recognize it, to see it fully, to really try to understand it. I shouldn't even use the word try, because that's striving for something, and I don't have to strive for anything. All I have to do is experience it. And that's all we're ever doing in any circumstance. And that's all that's ever required of us in any circumstance, is simply to experience life. Now, in that experience, yes, we have obligations. Yes, I have to pay my bills. I have to do work so that I can, be rewarded with money so that I can pass that money along to the electric company and the landlord and the Comcast people so that I can do this podcast, right? Need to put gas in the car, need to put food on the table, right? So that stuff is all part of it. It's not like just, like taking refuge in the Buddha doesn't mean that all that stuff goes away, right? Not even a little bit. I can't call my my landlord and say, oh, well, I'm just, taking refuge in the Buddha this month. So good luck to you. That wouldn't last very long. I don't think I'd have a place to do the podcast for very long after that. So it's never about fixing it, right? Even though that's what it feels like. And even though in the end, that's what we're doing, right? Like as I take refuge in my awareness and I take refuge in the practices of mindfulness and self-compassion and kindness, I am fixing it, right? I am getting better. Like on the other side of that, I feel tons better than I felt an hour ago, right? But it's not some specific thing that I'm trying to attain. That's the thing, right? I'm just allowing everything to be what it is as I attend to it. Now, I know this feels, counterintuitive to a lot of us, especially in the West, in America, right? And Western countries, right? Where, the pharmaceutical industry is the biggest industry we have. Right? And it's all about, oh, you're feeling depressed, take this pill. You're feeling anxious, take this pill. You can't, you're not able to perform in bed, take this pill. Instead of addressing why it is that we can't perform in bed. Because there certainly is a reason. It's not just like, oh, it just doesn't work anymore. No, it's because of your blood pressure, or because of your stress levels, or because of some dietary thing that's going on. I promise you. But it's easier just to take a pill, right? Who needs all that work? And so that's the way we're conditioned in this world. We're conditioned to think that, like, if something's wrong, make it right. Which is also why we have such a hard time, in my opinion, in this culture of acknowledging when things are not well, right? I was just talking to somebody yesterday, I think, that, how many times do you say, hi, how are you? And somebody gives you an answer that's negative. It's almost never. You say, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Hey, you okay? Oh, I'm just tired. What's really going on in their mind is like, I'm freaking the hell out. I can't pay my bills, and I'm feeling like I'm getting sick, and I don't have insurance, and I don't know what to do, and my whole family's, going under. I'm afraid of everything. I'm just tired. I'm fine. How are you? And that's the way we do it here, right? And so that's why the answer to that, right, is not just stoicism of making it that nothing's wrong, or some quick fix to make it right. Because then what happens when, on a functional level, what happens is when we do that, we're on a cycle. We're like a hamster on a wheel, right? Because, I could just take the pill now and I never address the root cause of the suffering. Well, guess what? That root's not going away. So, I don't know if it's a week or 2 weeks or a month, but you're going to be back in this situation again. And so the more you understand about this situation, the more you're able to transcend the thing that is causing the suffering for you, right? But again, in the immediate sense, it's not about that. It's not about fixing anything. In the immediate sense, I think that the beautiful word is the word that I repeated from the Thich Nhat Hanh group. Refuge, right? When we're in a discomfort of any kind, right? When we're feeling this stress in our body, right? Whether it's from, the thoughts of, oh my gosh, I can't pay my bills, or I'm having such a hard time, my relationship, my health, all that stuff, which is just thoughts, right? It's just a story in your mind. That's going to create a tension in your body. It could also start with your body. It could be that you didn't sleep very well. You're coming down with a cold. You got a toothache. Now that's going to influence the story, right? And so when we recognize that either the story is doing something or the body is doing something or the emotions, and maybe sometimes we just wake up and we're feeling grief over something, right? Like I shared with you all last year that my mother passed away. The anniversary of her death was just the other day. I wasn't consciously thinking of that, but my body knew it was going on. My emotions knew it was going on. And so something was off, right? So again, now the answer is not to just it's like, picturing like a blindfolded guy with a bat in his hand, trying to hit something like a piñata or something like that, right? But he's swinging around the other way. He's nowhere closer and everybody's laughing at him, right? So the idea is to take the blindfold off and to see what it is, to not try to avoid it, not try to bypass it, but to take refuge in the awareness of it. Because as I take refuge in the awareness of my body and feeling the tension, I recognize that, look at what this is doing to the thoughts in my mind. Look at how this tension is creating this pessimism and this criticism and this forlorn feeling that I have. Right? So the refuge, because then again, so I'm sorry. Again, my mind's not quite the same as it is usually, right, today. And so you're seeing it right before your eyes. But the idea of taking that refuge, right, when we're feeling that stress in our body and the thoughts and the story is going with it and the emotions are going with it, that's how it always works. Essentially what we're working with is a sense of fear. Right? So the alarm systems of our brain are very active in this time. And they're sounding the alarms as loud as they can, and they're flooding my body with cortisol and adrenaline and trying to get me to feel to safety, right? Because I feel unsafe in this moment. So the idea of refuge, right, is that when I come in and I tend to the tension in my body, my poor body. Oh my gosh, you poor thing. Oh my gosh, listen to this thought that's going through your mind. And oh my gosh, this emotion that you're experiencing. You're ready to cry. Come here, sit down with me. I got you. We're cool. Don't worry about it. We can just sit here and have a bowl of cereal and check on Facebook. And everything's going to be okay because I'm here paying attention to you now. Right? So that idea of refuge is so, so beautiful and so accurate. Because in that refuge, now I start to feel safe again. And now I am safe and open to reflecting on it, right? Because if I'm not feeling safe, then the last thing I want to do is reflect on what's wrong. Oh my gosh, that's terrifying. But that's the exact thing that I need to do. So the refuge is this reassurance and this assurance, this happy, this sort of a warm embrace for myself. That allows me then to soothe this tension and allows me to look at the story and not believe it because it's not true. And then check in with the emotions that sort of sit in between these two things. But just looking at it, just bringing the awareness to it, just taking refuge in it, it's already starting to change. And I already feel like, okay, I can manage this. It's going to be okay. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I really do. I wish you well, and I'll be back again at some point. I don't know, maybe tomorrow, maybe not. But truly, I hope that this I hope this resonates with some of you, because this is such the answer, right? This is the only thing we ever need, because in that refuge, in that feeling of safety, that's where the logical and wise answers present themselves to us, right? It's not in the, I could have scrolled right past that, refuge in the Buddha BS, right? But I was able to see that, and I was able to recognize, wait a second, there it is. I would not have seen that. I would not have recognized that had I not taken refuge in the practices of mindfulness, compassion, and kindness. So I invite you to do the same. Now, of course, it's not a matter of like, anytime you're feeling upset, that doesn't work like that, right? Because when you're feeling that is when, your mind is almost not letting you see that refuge. So that's why it has to become a habit. It has to become something that is automatic. And that only happens through daily practice. So, but daily practice, we're talking about to the tune of 15 minutes a day. That's it. So if you can manage 15 minutes a day of mindfulness practices, at some point you too will be able to find that refuge, and not a long time. I mean, weeks, you'll be able to find that refuge in the practices, in those times where life is, giving you a hard time. All right. So if you want to learn more about that, you know how to get me. All right. art@artburnscoaching.com. See you later, everybody. Thanks again for listening. Thanks again for watching. I wish you well. And I hope that you find your refuge in the practices of mindfulness, kindness, and compassion for yourself and everyone else. All right, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.